Ladies, I already know. Some men are going to hate me for what I'm about to say, and guess what? I don't care. Because today, we're talking about power. Our power. The power they tell us to shrink, to soften, to suppress. They tell us to be less so they can feel like more. They tell us to sit pretty while they take the lead. They tell us that ambition in a man is attractive, but in a woman, it's why? Because when we step into our power, they feel small. And that's not our fault. Women have always been powerful. But for centuries, society has worked tirelessly to redefine that power, to contain it, to control it, to make it more palatable. Women have been told to be strong, but not too strong, ambitious, but not threatening, independent, but not intimidating. The moment a woman steps fully into her power, she becomes a problem for those who thrive on her silence, on her compliance. And that's exactly why embracing bold feminine power is not just a choice, it's a necessity. Power in women has always been perceived differently than power in men. When a man is assertive, he is seen as a leader. When a woman is assertive, she is labeled as difficult. When a man is ambitious, he is admired. When a woman is ambitious, she is questioned. It's about control. Society has ingrained in us that a woman's strength should always be softened, always be nurturing, always be humble. But why? Why should women apologize for their drive, their confidence, their desire to have more? Women who embrace their power unapologetically are often met with resistance. Not just from men, but sometimes even from other women who have been conditioned to see power as a limited resource. But power is not a pie with only a few slices to go around. A woman owning her success does not take away from anyone else's. It sets a precedent. It opens doors. It tells the world that women are here not just to support, but to lead, not just to follow, but to carve their own paths. And this shift is unsettling to those who benefit from a woman who doubts herself. There is an undeniable strength in a woman who knows her worth. She doesn't seek validation in empty compliments or approval from those who fear her confidence. She walks into a room and commands attention, not because she asks for it, but because she embodies it. A woman who owns her power does not beg for a seat at the table. She builds her own. She doesn't shrink herself to be more digestible. She stands tall and lets the world adjust. This kind of strength comes at a cost. Women who refuse to dim their light are often labeled as too much, too confident, too outspoken, too independent. But what does too much really mean? It means refusing to fit into the mold of what makes others comfortable. It means shattering the expectations that were never designed to serve us in the first place. The truth is, a woman who is too much for the wrong people is just enough for the right ones. Some will say that power makes women unapproachable, that men prefer women who are softer, quieter, more accommodating. But the real question is, why should a woman's strength be measured by how well it caters to a man's ego? A truly confident man will never be threatened by a powerful woman. He will be inspired by her. And if he isn't, then he was never strong enough to stand beside her in the first place. Embracing bold feminine power isn't just about personal success. It's about redefining the narrative for future generations. It's about showing young girls that they don't have to choose between being liked and being respected, that they don't have to tone themselves down to fit into a world that was never built with them in mind, that they can be both fierce and kind, both nurturing and unstoppable, both powerful and deeply feminine. There is nothing more dangerous to an outdated system than a woman who knows her worth. And the more women who step into their power, the more that system will be forced to change. Because power isn't something given, it's something taken. And it's time women stop asking for permission to own what has always been theirs. From the moment we are born, society hands us a script. It tells us how to dress, how to behave, how to dream, and even how to love. Girls are given dolls, boys are given trucks. Girls are told to be gentle, boys are told to be tough. And just like that, without realizing it, we are conditioned to accept a world where gender norms dictate our choices, our ambitions, and our self-worth. But what happens when we refuse to follow the script? What happens when women decide that these norms are outdated, unnecessary, and, quite frankly, ridiculous? That's when the real challenge begins. For generations, gender norms have been used as tools of control. Women were told that their primary role was to be caregivers, nurturers, and supporters, never the leaders, the decision makers, or the trailblazers. Even today, in boardrooms, in politics, in sports, and in households, women who step outside these roles are met with resistance. If a woman prioritizes her career, she is questioned about when she will settle down and have children. If she chooses not to have children at all, she is told she will regret it. If she is strong-willed and outspoken, she is called aggressive, bossy, or too much to handle. But men? They are celebrated for the very same qualities. The double standards that come with these norms are exhausting. A man who works late is ambitious, but a woman who does the same is neglecting her family. A man who doesn't want children is just focused on his goals, but a woman who makes that choice is seen as selfish or unnatural. A man who is dominant in the workplace is a leader, but a woman who does the same is intimidating. The hypocrisy is glaring, and yet society continues to push these expectations onto women, as if our value is determined by how well we fit into a mold we never agreed to in the first place. One of the biggest myths about gender norms is that they are rooted in tradition, but tradition is just another word for something that has been done long enough to feel normal. It does not mean it is right. It does not mean it is fair. It does not mean it cannot change. Women today are proving that every single day. They are CEOs, engineers, astronauts, athletes, scientists, and innovators. They are redefining strength, success, and leadership on their own terms. And yet, despite all the progress, there is still a lingering pressure to conform, to be feminine enough but not too strong, to be independent but still dependent enough to be desirable. The fear of breaking gender norms is not really about women changing. It is about the discomfort it causes in those who benefit from keeping things the same. A woman who challenges gender norms forces society to question itself. If she can be powerful, then why must men be the sole providers? If she can be in control of her own body and choices, then why should laws and traditions dictate what she can and cannot do? If she can thrive without a man, then what does that mean for the power dynamics that have existed for centuries? The moment a woman refuses to play by the rules, the system feels threatened, because her actions expose the reality that these rules were never about fairness, they were about maintaining control. But gender norms do not only hold women back, they hold everyone back. Men are also trapped in expectations that tell them they cannot be emotional, that they must always be strong, that their worth is measured by their financial success. They are told that showing vulnerability makes them weak, that they must always be the protectors but never need protection themselves. These rigid rules suffocate individuality and create a world where people are forced to perform rather than be their true selves. The fight to challenge gender norms is not just about breaking barriers for women. It is about creating a world where no one is limited by outdated expectations, a world where people are free to define their own paths, their own identities, and their own success without fear of judgment or rejection. And that world? It is not a distant dream. It is being built every day by those who refuse to be confined by rules that were never meant to serve them. Self-worth is not something we are given, it is something we claim. Yet, from an early age, women are conditioned to tie their value to external validation. We are taught that being desirable is more important than being intelligent, that being chosen is more important than choosing ourselves, and that being agreeable is more important than being authentic. The world tells us to shrink, to compromise, to make ourselves easy to love. But self-worth is not about how others see us. It is about how we see ourselves. And the moment a woman realizes that, everything changes. A woman who knows her worth does not beg for attention. She does not settle for half-hearted love, for friendships that drain her, or for jobs that do not respect her skills. She does not measure her value by the number of compliments she receives, the approval of men, or how well she fits into society's expectations. Instead, she sets standards, high ones, Because self-worth and standards go hand in hand. You cannot claim to value yourself while accepting treatment that contradicts that belief. One of the biggest lies women are told is that having high standards makes them difficult. If we demand respect, we are seen as too demanding. If we refuse to tolerate inconsistency, we are labeled as picky. If we choose to walk away from relationships that do not serve us, we are called selfish. But let's be clear, knowing what you deserve and refusing to accept less is not an act of arrogance, it is an act of self-respect. And the people who make you feel guilty for having standards are usually the ones who benefit from you having none. Women are constantly pressured to be accommodating. We are expected to make relationships work even when they are toxic. We are told to be understanding even when we are disrespected. We are expected to give endless chances even when it costs us our dignity. But here's the truth. A man who truly values you will never require you to lower your standards to be with him. The right person will meet you where you are. They will not ask you to shrink so they can feel bigger. Self-worth is also about knowing when to walk away. It is about recognizing that not every opportunity is meant for you, not every person deserves access to you, and not every situation requires your presence. A woman who knows her worth understands that peace is more valuable than forced connections, that happiness is not found in chasing love, but in cultivating a life that fulfills her, and that the right people will recognize her value without her having to prove it. But embracing self-worth is not always easy. It requires unlearning years of conditioning. It means disappointing people who expect you to be small. It means being okay with being misunderstood, because when you start enforcing boundaries, those who benefited from your lack of them will push back. When you stop settling, those who thrived on your insecurity will criticize you. And when you finally realize that you are enough as you are, the world will try to convince you otherwise. But none of that matters, because self-worth is not about pleasing others, it is about honoring yourself. Women must stop waiting for permission to own their value. You do not need validation to be enough. You do not need approval to set boundaries. You do not need to justify why you demand respect. The moment you stop seeking validation from outside sources, you reclaim the power that was always yours. You are not meant to be chosen, you are meant to choose. And the most powerful choice you can ever make is to never again accept less than you deserve. Insecurities are universal. We all have them, whether it's about our appearance, our abilities, or our place in the world. But for women, insecurities are often amplified, not just by internal self-doubt, but by external pressures. Society has an uncanny ability to point out women's perceived flaws while simultaneously encouraging them to conform to unrealistic standards. But what happens when women decide to stop hiding behind their insecurities? What happens when we call out these insecurities and refuse to let them control us? That's when we reclaim our power. When a woman stands confidently in her own skin, the world reacts. There will always be those who feel threatened by that. The truth is, when a woman stops apologizing for her presence, it exposes the deep-rooted insecurities in others, and rather than face these uncomfortable truths, some people will attempt to tear her down, to make her question her value, and to make her feel small. But the reality is, the more we allow our insecurities to remain hidden, the more power they hold over us. The more we seek validation from others, the more we feed into a system that profits from our self-doubt. Insecurities are often used as tools of control, particularly when it comes to women. The beauty industry thrives on women's insecurities, convincing them that they are not enough unless they buy the latest product, follow the newest trend, or alter their bodies to fit a certain image. The media promotes a narrow definition of beauty, encouraging women to aspire to an ideal that is impossible to achieve for the vast majority. And then, of course, there are the men who cannot handle a woman who is not bound by the same insecurities. They see her confidence, her self-assurance, her refusal to conform, and they call it arrogance. They project their own insecurities onto her, labeling her as too much, too independent, or too difficult to handle. But these insecurities that people try to impose on women are not the woman's problem. They are the problem of those who cannot deal with her strength. When a woman refuses to be defined by someone else's idea of what she should be, it forces people to confront their own fears. The truth is, some men feel insecure around powerful women because their egos are threatened by a woman who doesn't need their validation. When a woman steps into her power, it highlights their own inadequacies, and rather than work on themselves, they project their insecurities onto her. The way they react to a woman's confidence says far more about their own self-esteem than it does about hers. But here's the reality. Your insecurities are not your fault. They are not the reflection of your worth, nor are they a measure of your abilities. They are the result of the conditioning, the expectations, and the judgments imposed upon you. Women are expected to be flawless, yet men are allowed to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to grow without judgment. This double standard only serves to make women question themselves, to make them feel that they are never enough. But it's time to call out those insecurities for what they really are. Tactics used to keep women in line, to silence their voices, to make them doubt their own power. Insecure people will always try to make others feel small because it helps them feel larger. They will criticize your appearance, question your ambitions, and challenge your beliefs. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something that forces them to confront their own shortcomings. And the most dangerous thing a woman can do is internalize this criticism. When we begin to believe the lies that others tell us about our worth, we allow those insecurities to consume us. But when we recognize them for what they are, projection and fear, we can step away from them and regain control. In a world that thrives on making women feel inadequate, it is revolutionary to simply own who you are. The moment you stop apologizing for your existence, the moment you stop shrinking to make others feel comfortable, you challenge the insecurities that have been projected onto you. You make space for other women to do the same. You show them that self-worth is not something that needs to be earned or validated by anyone outside of yourself. And that, my friends, is the ultimate act of defiance. The key to silencing insecurities is not in denying their existence, but in confronting them head-on. Recognize them for what they are, and instead of allowing them to control you, let them serve as reminders that you are challenging the status quo. You are disrupting the systems that benefit from your doubt, and you are proving every single day that your worth was never in question. The moment you call out those insecurities, you disarm them. You take away their power, and that's when you begin to reclaim yours. Sisterhood is not just a concept. It is a lifeline, a foundation, and a force of nature that holds the power to change everything. In a world where women are often pitted against each other, where competition is encouraged instead of collaboration, sisterhood stands as a reminder that we are stronger together than apart. For centuries, society has tried to convince women that there is not enough room for all of us to succeed, that we must fight for the spotlight, for the attention, for the approval. But sisterhood challenges that narrative. It tells us that there is no need to tear each other down to rise. Instead, we can lift each other up, celebrate each other's victories, and share in the collective power that comes when women unite. When women support one another, we create a force that is unstoppable. The power of sisterhood lies not in a simple show of camaraderie, but in the profound understanding that every woman's success is a reflection of our collective strength. When one woman wins, we all win. When one woman rises, we all rise. This mentality goes against the grain of the world's conditioning, where women are often taught to compete, to envy, and to compare. But in reality, when we focus on lifting each other up, we begin to dismantle the very systems that pit us against one another. We become a community, not just a collection of individuals. Supporting each other is not always about grand gestures. It's often in the small, quiet moments of encouragement, understanding, and empathy. It's in the text messages that say, "You've got this," or the phone calls that ask, "How are you really doing?" It's in the safe spaces where women can speak their truths without judgment, where they can share their dreams and struggles, knowing they will be met with support and not with competition. In these spaces, we find the courage to be vulnerable because we know we won't be criticized or belittled. Instead, we will be heard, we will be seen, and we will be believed. Women are told that there's not enough room for all of us to succeed, that we must constantly battle for a seat at the table. But when we embrace sisterhood, we recognize that the table can be as big as we want it to be. We can create our own spaces, our own platforms, and our own opportunities without waiting for permission from a system that was never built with us in mind. When women support each other, we break down the barriers that have kept us from fully realizing our potential. We share resources, we offer guidance, and we open doors for each other. Sisterhood also teaches us the importance of celebrating each other's achievements, especially when those achievements challenge the traditional narrative of what a woman is supposed to be. Society has often conditioned us to downplay our success, to be humble, to make others comfortable with our accomplishments. But in sisterhood, we learn that there is no shame in shining brightly, in owning our achievements, in standing in the fullness of our power. When one woman succeeds, it is not a threat to the rest of us. It is proof that we too can succeed. In supporting each other's success, we remind one another that there is no limit to what we can achieve. But sisterhood goes beyond just support and success. It extends into the hard moments too. It's in the times of struggle, of doubt, of failure. When a woman is struggling, sisterhood steps in to remind her that she is not alone, that her worth is not determined by her setbacks. It's in the late-night conversations about how hard life feels, the moments of shared tears, and the collective understanding that sometimes we need to lean on each other for strength. In these moments, we are reminded that vulnerability does not make us weak, it makes us human. And in these moments of vulnerability, sisterhood shows us that we are never truly alone. The beauty of sisterhood is that it is not exclusive, it is inclusive. It is about embracing women of all walks of life, celebrating the diversity of experiences, backgrounds, and perspectives that make us who we are. In a world that often pits women against each other based on race, class, or other differences, sisterhood stands as a reminder that our strength lies in our ability to see each other's humanity, to support each other through our unique struggles, and to celebrate our shared victories. When women come together in the spirit of sisterhood, we become forces of change. We become disruptors of systems that have tried to keep us small. We become warriors who will not stop fighting until every woman has the opportunity to stand in her power. And while the journey may be long, the strength of sisterhood ensures that no woman has to walk it alone. Together, we are unstoppable. Together, we are a force that cannot be silenced, ignored, or diminished. The bonds of sisterhood are unbreakable, and in those bonds lies the power to transform the world.